All right, who's ready to check out another monster truck? I know I am. This one definitely looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I kind of know it's going to be a lot of fun because we just reviewed a similar truck to it, the ECX Axe, and this is pretty much the same underneath the body. Just the body is different between the two trucks, but it is a fun truck. It is a great entry-level truck, and it's even great for those who are experienced as well and who maybe really like the body on this thing and the wheels and tires. But it is a fun monster truck overall. I'm not going to go too much into detail in this particular review, though, about it because we just reviewed the Axe, and it's the same thing. But let me just go give you some quick details. It's got a high CG plastic chassis on here. We've got your standard independent front and rear suspension, oil-filled shocks. The differential in the rear is a gear differential, grease-filled, but that has been proven to work. There's a slip clutch in there, slider axles, and then it's ready to run with some pretty decent electronics in here. We've got a baseline Spectrum radio system. We've got a proven 550 can motor in the back, 12-turn can motor, which should give you plenty of speed. I know it gives you plenty of speed, especially for beginners. And then a dynamite speed controller, Spectrum servo in there. And overall, it's a fun truck. It was built to have fun. Tires on here have a realistic look to them, as well as the rims. Got a big ECX logo on there, chevron tread. But the big feature on this particular truck is this Brutus body, and this is licensed by Horizon, and just a great representation of the real truck. Looks really cool, decaled really well. Hopefully the paint stays on this one. We had a little issue with our Axe monster truck with the paint chipping off. So we'll definitely check that out. Give it a decent workout when we're out bashing with it. But overall, very cool look on here. Very easy for someone getting into the hobby to use. And it's available at hobby stores. So if you're interested in this, head down to your local hobby store, Google it, head on over, check it out. If you don't have one, I understand a lot of people don't have a local hobby shop. Maybe you could call someone up within your state and maybe they'll work with you on shipping one out to you directly. All right, now, like I said, I'm not going to go into all the details like I usually do on this particular truck because we've gone over all of it. If you want to see all the details, click on the link above, check out our ECX Axe review. You'll get all the details there. What I want to do in this particular review is I want to go over all the option parts that they have for this truck. And, those option parts fit other ECX vehicles as well, the Ruckus and the Torment. But, we're going to focus on putting them on this truck right here. So why don't we head over to the workbench and I'll go over all those option parts that you could get if you want to grow into this truck. All right, I've laid out all of the option parts that we're going to install on our ECX Brutus, and all of these parts are available through horizonhobby.com, and you should be able to get them through your local retailer as well. Let's start off over here with the ECX options, and the first thing I want to show you guys are these aluminum shocks. I like these shocks. I've used them on some ECX vehicles before. These are an aluminum-bodied shock, and as I mentioned, the shock on here is a composite-bodied shock, so the aluminum shock should last a lot longer. Feels a lot smoother, and it's easier to actually tune. So we've got this preload collar on here, and this adjusts the preload of the spring. And what that does is it raises and lowers the vehicle. Don't use this to tension your springs, to think it makes your spring harder. It really is there to adjust the ride height of the vehicle. All right, so there are front and rear shocks. Make sure, if you're going out and replacing one at a time, if you need some fronts, let's say you blew out a front and you want to upgrade, definitely make sure you get the right part numbers, which I'm going to list in the description below. All right, next up, what we have here is the aluminum bell crank system. This is your steering cranks. The cranks that are on the truck, located down in here. They are plastic. They do work well. They have a servo saver built into them, but they can flex or even break over time or in a hard crash. And so that's when it's nice to go ahead and upgrade to an aluminum bell crank system. And this gives you everything you need right here in this bag, including instructions on how to install it. What's really nice about these, beyond them being aluminum, is they do give you ball bearings for these to ride on. So your steering is going to be a lot smoother. All right, now let's move on to this aluminum shock tower here. This is the rear shock tower. Nice bulky aluminum piece here, and it's just much stronger than the stock composite shock tower. They do go ahead and give you the hardware that you'll need to install this, and basically it's just an even swap out after you assemble the shock tower. No modifications are required, and it is much stronger. Now, I did want to go ahead and get a front tower to install on this, but I noticed on the ECX website that they discontinued it. So I don't know why they did that, but we're just going to have a rear tower on there. Now up front, I'm going to install caster blocks on here. These are just a nice option to have. Sometimes the caster blocks do break in a crash, so these shouldn't break in a crash. Your arm will flex, but the caster block won't break. That's one thing I should point out to you, that when you do go ahead and replace things that with aluminum, something else gets that shock. So if there's a plastic part attached to it and you hit something hard, maybe this won't bend or break, but something else will get that stress. But that's just something to be aware of. Back to the caster blocks, they do go ahead and give you the hardware you need to install that. All right, next up is the rear hub, another nice option to have. I definitely like putting aluminum hubs in the rear of vehicles. Sometimes this upper tab right here will break in a hard crash. They give you the hardware you need to install those as well. And again, it's just swapping out the stock part, putting in the new part. Next up, I'm going to go over here to these aluminum wheel hexes. Why do you want aluminum wheel hexes? Well, the stock ones in there, they're plastic and they'll work just fine, but with wear, they can go ahead and spin inside the wheels. And these aluminum ones kind of prevent that. They're much stronger. They won't wear out. It's just a nice little hop-up part to get. All right, now onto this bag right here. And people that have driven the ECX vehicles before, that have added more power to them, they say this is a must-have option. This is the metal gear set. Now, the metal gear set, as you could see, gives you all the gears for inside the transmission that you're going to need to swap out. We've got the differential already assembled with bearings on there, grease on the inside, and then we have the idler gear in there and the top shaft gear. So basically just replace the stock gears with the aftermarket gears, and I'd go ahead and add a little bit of grease to the inside of the transmission so those gears spin nice and smooth. But definitely a worthy upgrade to get. Our ECX Axe has been running fine on the stock plastic gears. We still have a stock electronic system in there, but it's working just fine. All right, now on to the electronics. I'm going to do a little electronics work to this, but up first I want to show you the battery. This is a good battery to get if you're just going to go and run this vehicle stock, and it'll give you some decent power. This is an 8.4 volt 7-cell nickel metal hydride pack. And these packs are really easy to use and maintain. This one has the EC3 plug. Let me show you the plug that's in this kit, because this is actually a change from our Axe. This has the IC3 plug in here. So this is compatible with the Spectrum's new smart batteries, but it will work with the old EC3 plugs just fine. They plug right in. Definitely just be aware of the plug that you're getting when you're picking up this kit. But this battery will be a lot of fun. I'll probably run it on a 2S battery as well, but that's good battery to start off with. All right, next up we've got the Spectrum Servo. I am going to go swap out the servo in here. The stock servo, which is located kind of back and under in here, you're going to have to do a little bit of work to take it out, is a plastic geared servo. And this one right here is a metal geared servo. It is a standard servo, but it'll be a lot more durable as far as the gear train goes on there. And definitely don't want to break a gear when you're going out and bashing. And if you're adding more power to your vehicle, which is what we're going to do, I'm going to show you in a second, other things get stressed out and things could possibly break. All right, finally here we have this Tazer twin motor ESC combo. This is a pretty neat little setup here. If you're looking to add some more power, pretty easy on the budget as well. And this is a 2-in-1 unit. So this is going to go ahead and replace the stock speed controller and the stock motor in the vehicle. And your speed controller is located inside the motor in the end bell here. And of course, your motor assembly is in there as well. But this is a really simple install. It doesn't require any soldering or anything. There's your battery connector right there, on-off switch, and you go plug this lead into your receiver. It's a 3000 kV motor, so it's got to have a bit more power than the stock unit here, but will also be less of a hassle as far as maintenance goes, and will give you the power you need to have some fun. All right, I'm going to go ahead and install all the parts in the vehicle, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. All right, so the ECX Brutus is loaded up with option parts, and everything went in pretty smooth. There's a couple things I need to tell you guys about, but let me go over some of those parts and their installation. So first up, I just started ripping apart the front end to get the steering in. The steering, I think, is one of those option parts you need to get. It is much stronger than the stock bell crank system, and I know I've seen some people complain about breaking them before, so that is one option you should get, especially if you're going to be hard on this truck. It's just a great upgrade. And then I put the Spectrum steering servo in there. Stock servo, again, works fine if you're just having fun in the backyard, completely stock out of the box with let's say a nickel nickel metal hydride battery, which tends to be a little bit softer than the punch from a LiPo battery, you know, it'll be just fine. I suspect that I'm going to be thrashing this thing around, and so, you know, I want to have that metal geared servo in there. I do still have the plastic servo arm on there for now. Forgot to pick one of those up while I was building it, but you know what, I'll replace that when I blow it out if it does happen. So those are some great upgrades to get. Now the shocks, they are another great upgrade. I've used these shocks before, probably used these shocks on 3 ECX trucks I built prior to this one. Always had great luck with them. I've only ripped one shock cap off of the aluminum shock set, and so, you know, it's not bad. Once you have some aluminum in there, it's a bit stronger than the plastic, where, you know, plastic and plastic will tend to pull out. That aluminum will grab into the plastic, be a bit stronger. Still, it would be nice to have aluminum caps on here, but again, you know, in my experience with these, they work just fine, and the truck is so much more plush with these shocks on here. They were oil filled. I didn't have to bother filling them up, which was great, and they were basically, the spring preload was set perfectly from the factory. It was ready to go once I had just bolted them on. It's just 4 screws, so that was great. The other thing I did up front was I put the aluminum caster blocks on there. That's an upgrade I'm not sure if, you know, I want to suggest to you guys, because it does, you know, help with the durability on it, but I did notice that the steel kingpin screws kind of bind in the aluminum a little bit. So just be aware of that. If you do go and get these, you know, check to make sure that everything spins free, and you may actually have to take out a drill bit and open up the holes a little bit to make sure everything spins free. So just be aware of that. Now in the rear of the truck, again, aluminum shocks in the rear, those are great, love those. The aluminum tower, nice option to have if you're going to be tumbling a lot. Still wish they had that front tower too, that would have been a good upgrade. But the rear tower is nice. Make sure you use some Loctite on the screws. On the outside of the arms, I put the aluminum rear hubs. Those are always nice because the top tab can break off in a hard crash. So that's a nice option. And then on the outside of the rear, I put those 12mm aluminum hexes, and they don't fit in the front. The front is a wider hex, so just be aware of that. There's 4 in the package, but they're narrow, so that only works in the rear, and that's where all the stress is anyway. So, you know, it's a good upgrade to have, even though you're only going to use 2 of them. Now, the big upgrade that I really like is that metal gear set for the transmission. Much stronger than the stock stuff, especially if you go and bump up the power a little bit. You know, that's when those plastic gears tend to get stressed out. So the aluminum set dropped right in there, put a little bit of grease on there, not a lot, just a little bit of grease on the gears, and that thing is set to go. I think it's going to be really strong from here on out. Now the electronics, as you remember, I got that new dynamite motor. It's pretty awesome, just fits right there in the back. Just got to start off with the stock pinion and go from there. That should work just fine. Just, you know, watch your temps if you are putting any aftermarket motor in there. Always check your temps to make sure you don't burn out your electronics. And you know what's really nice about that is the ESC motor are built all into one unit, so it's just there in the back, and it got rid of that speed driller sitting up top. It's a pretty neat little upgrade. It's been a while since I've tried it. Looking forward to trying it again. And that's really about it. This thing is ready to go out and have some fun. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Just go out and jump this thing and rip up some dirt. It is time to talk performance of our ECX Brutus full option build, and I like it a lot more than the X that I drove. I just have to say it. I mean, this thing handled a lot better. I think it even laid down the power a lot better. It was a little bit quicker with the electronic system that I put in it, and I just had an absolute blast with it. Now, let me just go over everything. The handling department, it was a lot better with these shocks on here. I thought that the suspension did well before in stock form, and you know what, for backyard bashing it is going to be totally fine, but for someone that like me who has been in the hobby for a long time, I could feel the difference with these shocks. I think they just handle a lot better, and it was just so cool that they were set up right from the factory, right out of the box, and or right out of the bag, and I just had to throw them on here and they worked just fine. So I like the shocks on here. Steering wise, the steering I thought was on par with what it was before. The stock servo seems to work fine. This one works fine as well. Nice quick steering with this servo. The torque was there, and I think the bell cranks obviously helped out. I did a couple of cartwheels with it. Didn't have any issues with anything on the steering there as far as durability goes, of course, because they're aluminum now, so they're much stronger. I did some cartwheels, like I said. The shock tower, you don't really notice a performance difference there, but it's a durability thing, so I didn't experience any durability issues there. Actually, to be honest, I've never broken a rear shock tower, but you know what? That's just a cool piece to have back there. The differential in new gears, I think, worked out just fine. The motor in here is just a tad quicker than the factory system, and I think I could go up another tooth or two on the pinion gear and be just fine. Didn't seem to overheat at all, but I know that the transmission's bulletproof. It could take the power. I did run it mostly on 2S, and everything ran fine. No sign of durability issue. The one problem I did have, though, and this was odd, was the rear wheel fell off. The wheel nut backed off, and just off of a big jump, the wheel came off of the axle there, and it was totally weird. Never had that happen before. I think it kind of just backed out on its own. I think maybe finally came off during that jump. But went back to the car. I had an extra lock nut there. I put it back on, and no problem since. So, that's not really a big deal. It's a few cents for a lock nut if it happens to you. But those, no sign of damage to the wheel, even with those aluminum hexes on there. So it kept everything, together and didn't strip out or anything like that. But overall, I think it was just a great build. These parts work great, and I have no problem telling you guys that if you're thinking of upgrading, check these out. These work perfectly for the vehicle. Pretty easy to install. They're definitely affordable along with the truck itself, and it is a very cool truck. I wasn't sure how it would look out there on the BMX track and jump on the jumps and stuff like that, but this thing looks pretty trick out there. Definitely like this body style on this truck. And overall, just a pure fun truck from ECX. They do an awesome job with ready to runs. It's very affordable, and again, it's available at your local hobby shops.